Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason, just outside Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and I am at the Flight 93 National Memorial, and it's definitely a very touching one. And just to warn you, this one has some sensitive material in it, but to give you guys an idea, I mean, yes, it was a lot to do with the 9/11 attacks, and I do remember what I was doing that day, as do millions of other Americans. However, there are some that are under the age of 25 and do not know at the time of this video, that don't remember, and it's important to educate them on how that day has affected our lives and many others. But we'll be seeing the Visitor Center, the Memorial Plaza, as well as the Tower of Voices. And I mean, it's definitely worth a visit to anyone who's out in South Central Pennsylvania. Now, if you've seen the movie United 93, you'll have an idea of what the crew members and passengers went through when they were battling the terrorists on board of Flight 93. But that movie is not for everyone, but hopefully you have an idea. And I'm going to go ahead and read a few historical markers while here, so let's get started. And here's the first historical marker you'll encounter right at the entrance. The Flight 93 National Memorial. A common field one day, a field of honor forever. On September 11th, 2001, at 10:03 a.m. Eastern Time, United Airlines Flight 93 crashes into a field 2 miles ahead of you, shattering the quiet of the Pennsylvania countryside. Those who rush to the scene look on in disbelief at charred trees and a smoldering crater. This community, like countless others across the nation, is shaken by the crash and the unimaginable violence and destruction of Al-Qaeda terrorists bring to the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. But as the day unfolds, this ordinary field reveals a compelling story of courage and hope. This memorial is a tribute to the passengers and crew of Flight 93 and a place to explore this inspiring story. You will journey through a landscape that still hints at its mining past on your way to a simple field that is their final resting place, and a lasting testament to the deeds of 40 extraordinary people. And as you drive, there are a couple historical markers where you can view, and that over there is the Tower of Hope, that right there. And then the Visitor Center is about 2 or 3 miles, and then you can also go to the Memorial Plaza from there, and that's exactly where I'll take you. And just before I go to the Visitor Center, I will be going to the Tower of Voices, or going up close to it rather. Here is historical marker by the National Park Service about that. A monumental 93-foot tall musical instrument, the Tower of Voices marks the gateway to and from this expansive living memorial and landscape. 40 chimes represent the voices of the 40 courageous passengers and crew members who took a vote to come together and fight terrorism on the morning of September 11, 2001. The music of the chimes is a living tribute to these 40 men and women, many whose last messages to loved ones were through telephone calls and recorded voice messages. Why is the Tower of Voices unique? There are no wind chime towers in the world like the Tower of Voices. The Tower of Voices contains aluminum tubular chimes which create music when the wind blows the concrete tower, which is 93 foot tall and 15 feet in diameter. The Tower of Voices chimes are activated solely by the wind. Conifer and decutus plantings are arranged in concentric rings representing sound waves emanating from the tower. And this is the music theory and the chimes construction. But the musical tones create both harmony and dissonance, with the surrounding chimes representing the voices of the passengers and crew members who gave their lives and through that action saved others that fateful morning on September 11th, 2001. So here I am up close, and unfortunately, I mean, the wind has to be 12 to 15 miles per hour for the chimes to go off, at least 12 to 15 miles per hour. And I mean, it's blowing out here, but not enough. But they do give you the option. They do have a QR code back there if you want to hear them, like through your phone, like what they sound like. But either way, this is a very magnificent, I mean, a very excellent tribute. I'll get up a little bit closer. Wow. Here's a marker titled "A Field of Honor." This land was first settled in the late 1700s. For a century and a half, much of the area remains wooded, with cultivated fields and pastures surrounding a few scattered farmhouses and barns. Beginning in the 1950s, mining reshapes the landscape. Huge machines scrape away layers of soil and rock to reveal long black seams of coal. Enormous trucks travel this road, hauling away coal to steel mills and power plants. Coal mining brings people and jobs. In the mid-1990s, surface mining of these lands ends. Although unused mining equipment and industrial buildings litter the area, the rocky land is being reclaimed. Coarse grasses and small trees are planted, mine water is treated to improve its quality, and wildlife is returning. On September 11, 2001, the land is transformed again by the actions of the passengers and crew of United Airlines Flight 93. Because of their struggle with terrorists, the airplane crashes just 2 miles ahead, and not the terrorist intended target in Washington, D.C. At the site of the crash, a memorial and verdant trees, grasses, and wildflowers embrace this land. Millions of people from around the world come to pay their respects. And it's about a mile or two that way, the visitor center and the Memorial Plaza. Here's another marker you encounter on the way to the visitor center. All right, September 11th, 2001. It was a peaceful and ordinary day in the village of Lambertsville until Flight 93 streaked overhead at more than 500 miles per hour. Wow. The distant Laurel Mountains are outlined against a cloudless blue sky. The weather is mild, but few people are outdoors. Many sit stunned and horrified in front of their televisions, watching the World Trade Center and the Pentagon burn. America is under attack. Terrorists are using hijacked planes as missiles to destroy symbols of power. People in this area feel safe, relieved to be far from any terrorist target. Shortly after 10 a.m., a large aircraft just clears the mountain ridge before you, traveling far too low. Its engines roar as it passes over the cluster of homes in Lambertsville in front of you. Wings rocking from side to side. It flies nearly overhead and disappears over the rise behind you. And these were quotes from local residents, as like here's one that says, "And then to the left of my driveway, which would be from the north, I saw the plane. I didn't know if it was going to be actually clear the town of Lambertsville, but it was that low. I was probably one of the last people to see that plane." This guy was washing his motorcycle. These are all anonymous too. So at the time of my visit, they're working on the restrooms, which are right there, but they do have giant toilets here. And here's a little map of the grounds. Like, I'm right here, and that's the visitor center in front. I know, the big wall and everything. But then you can also go on the trail, and then down there is the Memorial Plaza. And you can also park your car and go to the wetlands bridge and to the other end of the walkway. I'll show you later. But yes, back there is the visitor center. As soon as you walk past those two walls, it's on the left. There is a museum in there. I find it very fascinating. They do not want a video or photography in there. I respect their wishes. And there's a gift shop in there. Get your passport stamped, buy some souvenirs with the national park logo on it. And they have a good bookstore in there too that talk a lot about the 9/11 attacks, as well as the Lincoln Highway. But definitely do not miss out on the museum part, because there's a lot. I mean, even if you do remember the event, it's definitely, there's a lot, you can learn in there. And they do have the details of the event. And yes, it is sensitive material. It's for mature audiences, but so just come in there with an open mind, because yeah. And there is something about, for all the 40 victims, like you can look at all the photos and their short biographies and all that. Very touching. It's just a reminder that life is just too short. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit the trail. I mean, I could park the car and go down that way, but I might as well just kind of go on the trail all the way to the Memorial Plaza. Here's the first one I encounter on the trail, the National Park Service. It's pretty much talks about the search for evidence, like to see if it was a terrorist attack. Now, FBI teams launched the investigation while state police provide security. Mining company buildings, since removed, became their command post. The American Red Cross and the Salvation Army support this temporary city of more than 1,500 people from 70 federal, state, and local agencies. Recovered weapons, belongings, and the black box recordings linked the Flight 93 hijackers to the international terrorist network, Al-Qaeda. While the intensive on-site investigation was completed in 13 days, the global investigation of the September 11th attack continues. That looks like a bomb. First view. When family members of the passengers and crew of Flight 93 arrived at the crash site in September 2001, authorities escorted them to this overlook. From a distance, they saw the crash site for the first time and viewed the investigation and recovery operation already underway. Family members left deeply personal messages, mementos, and flowers for their loved ones at a makeshift memorial at the edge of this overlook. The world's lasting impression of the Flight 93 crash site was shaped by the media images and broadcasts from this ridge. Today, a large sandstone boulder marks the crash site. And we are headed that way, except I don't know which way to go. I guess I'll just wing it. So on the way down there, I mean, I don't have very much trail left, but I can definitely get a good view. There's somebody down there as well. Now, so this Memorial Plaza serves as the border of the debris site. And in 2002, Congress designated this area as a national memorial. But I mean, making this into a national park designated place was not an overnight thing. I mean, they had to think of ways to help memorialize those who were on Flight 93. And there was a contest for design of how to design this, and it was controversial because for various reasons. That is the boulder here. Let me point it over to you. And then over there is Hemlock Grove. And of course, they do have sitting areas all over if you want to take a rest. And here is Memorial Plaza. I did not know when this opened, but apparently it opened by phase. Now, this was designed by an artist group in Los Angeles. Now, it was supposed to be complete on September 11, 2011 to coincide with the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. But on September 10th, 2011, the first phase was dedicated, and I'm not sure if this was part of the first phase or not. But there was a ceremony here, and then Vice President Joe Biden, former Presidents George W. Bush and Bill Clinton, as well as then Speaker of the House John Boehner, were here as well, and also performing with Sarah McLachlan with her two hit songs, Angel and I Will Remember You, which I think is very fitting. And during the ceremony, Bill Clinton announced that he and Boehner would launch a fundraising effort to raise the $10 million required to complete the memorial. These are all the names of the 40 people who were on board, and this does not include the 4 terrorists that were on board. I think there was either 7 or 8 crew members, including the pilot, and then the rest were people going from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco Airport. Each one has their own column, and they're all in alphabetical order. Like, this is Christian Adams and Lorraine Bay, and it says flight attendant. I did not know anybody who was killed in the 9/11 attacks, but I'm sure, I mean, there's obviously lots of people who know at least 1 or 2 or 3 that were affected by the 9/11 attacks. And not just during the terrorist attack, but also like the toxicity of the aftermath of it, like the smoke and what was in the air. Now here's what I'd not see. Wow, Lauren Catuzzi, an unborn child. Wow. If you want to go in, if you want to learn about every one of these that were on that plane, there is I mean, you can go inside the visitor center in the exhibit, and there's a lot of information of based on every one of them, like what were they doing on the plane, was it for business, was it for business trip or personal. There was one guy who was in the 70s who was on the plane, and he was his grandson died in a car accident, and he was on his way to San Francisco to comfort his family, and you know, in a very tragic state. I mean, you know, things just took a wrong turn. You know, when you hear stories about these people, it's just, it makes you wonder. It's like, man, it could happen to anyone. I don't see any of the pilots on here, but if I do, I've seen a lot of the flight attendants. Yeah, there's nothing over here either. This kind of reminds me of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, like how it goes up and down. Now, I don't know if this is open, the grounds are open at night, but I know they have the lights on. They probably have the lights on to shine a light on these every night, which I think is great. This is the Memorial Plaza gate. It is not open.